Hi, Prentis.
Hello.
How you doing?
All right.
Hi, Ray.
Hi there.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I think probably good to go. Okay, so we're ready to press play. We'll make a start. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and play. Okay, so we've just started with a lovely model shot of the Darien city. Do you guys, Ray, did you work much with Brian Johnson on in terms of post, because he also did the models? Were you kind of concerned with the post-production side of things? How much were you kind of involved with that?
Who
To
were you
me.
talking to?
Sorry, Ray. Sorry.
Yes, very involved.
Yeah.
I used to, after everything shot, Brian Johnson, Keith Wilson, and David Lane, who was the top editor, would show me the rough cut and show me what they'd inserted and what they'd put in. And I would okay it and make sure everything was all right. And then Jerry Anderson would take a final look and give the okay. So we always were in sync with Brian Johnson, a very clever fellow.
Yeah.
I mean, you just spoiled it, because I thought all my audiences and my fans over the years thought I was doing all that stuff with the models and that, flying spaceships and doing it almost. I took all the credit for that.
Right.
Now you've blown it.
Sorry about that, Ray. Did you find you had to make much changes, or did Brian kind of instinctively know what you wanted?
No, they Brian Johnson, Keith Wilson, Jerry Anderson knew more about all that stuff than any of us directors that went on, because they'd been doing it for years with Thunderball, Captain Scarlet, all the puppet shows. You may look at the puppet shows and see that they are puppets, but if you look at the spaceships and the cars and the modules and all that, they were the same quality as Space 1999 or UFO 1 and UFO 2. They had all that down long before us directors and actors ever got anywhere near the show, and bless him, before Jerry Anderson ever got Space 99 away, because I mean, it nearly didn't happen 3 times.
So how much were you in? Because I believe where you were involved in reshooting a bit of the pilot episode, the first episode.
Yeah, all these things you're asking me go into long dialogues, which is unfair on Prentis and a lot of the audience, because it's technical stuff. I mean, I know the audience like technical stuff, but when they decided to do the pilot, when Barbara Bain and Martin Landau decided to sign, which we wouldn't have gone unless we had American leads. It had to be American leads.
Yeah.
Abe Mandel, who was at ITC in New York, insisted they're American leads. The first person they went to was Robert Culp. Sylvia Anderson wanted Robert Culp. Right. Jerry didn't, and nor did the network, because Robert Culp laid down terms that he had to direct so many and write so many himself. The network and Jerry Anderson knew that was writing trouble on the wall. So they walked away from it, and they wound up with Martin and Barbara. And the first script out was George Bellick, was the American writer who was supposed to have written the first script. He did write the first script, and they brought an American director over who worked with Martin and Barbara on Mission Impossible. And they also had shot a couple of pilots. At any rate, our show on that, Prentis will bear me out, is 10-day schedule. All those shows we shot for 10 days. Lee Katzen was the director they brought over, and he went 15 days on the first episode, and it ran 2 hours and 7 minutes. So Martin had to, Jerry had to take it to New York to show Abe Mandel, and Mandel practically threw it out the window. He said it was a load of rubbish.
Right.
So Jerry brought it back, and Chris Penfold then took over the writing side, and he used George Bellick's premise, but he took over and rewrote the whole script and rewrote it to what Lee Katzin had directed and put on the screen, which was so much of it. Lee Katzin would go 11 takes on one shot. He was taking forever. And they said, okay, it's a new script, but using a lot of the material. And Jerry asked me to reshoot. So I reshot lots of scenes. Most of it was Lee Katzin stuff edited, but then I shot lots of link-up scenes to make it work for Chris Penfold's script.
Yeah.
And it came in an hour. They took it back to Abe Mandel, and Abe Mandel said, okay, we go on it. And so did Lou Grade and the Italians.
Right, yeah. Do you want to press play on your DVD now, Prentis? I think roughly you'll be where everyone else is now. I think that'll...
We'll try it.
So they're just sort of starting to suit up to go on into the space city.
Does that all make sense, what I'm saying, Prentis?
Yes, that total sense. Just one thing I would say that to check what you were doing, Clifton and I went over to Bray one day to see the model shots, and we thought what you were doing was fantastic.
It was.
So 13-foot, what is the main model was 13 foot. And just incredible, just to watch them, the wind blowing through the curtains at Bray while we watched this stuff being done. You saw the tremendous sort of awareness of space and size that they managed to give to space. So it looked endless. It was very, very encouraging to go and see them.
Yeah, because they kept their studio at Bray where they did all the Fireball and Thunderbird and all that. They kept that as long as they could, and then the lease was up on it. It sold out. They had to move it. They had nothing but trouble with that because, first of all, long before this, when it was UFO 1 and UFO 99, MGM sold out. They had never had a studio there. They went to EMI, and Keith Wilson built the sets at EMI, which was incredible sets. And then EMI closed. So overnight, they had to move everything to Pinewood. This show was cursed, I mean, at the beginning, but Jerry and Sylvia, I don't know how they did it. I mean, but they pulled it together each time and got us back on track. But it nearly never, ever reached it. I mean, it was, and the last thing with Abe Mandel was that he would go on the restriction only if it never went to Earth. The show must never, ever go to Earth. Other shows, UFO and that, they lived on Earth and they went to space and all those sort of things. He said that Space 1999 must never go to Earth. And Penfold and Jerry in the end solved it. He said, okay, we'll destroy Earth. It will go off its axis. And so that was the end of Earth. That's the way they got around it.
And what did you think, Prentis, when you originally offered the show? What did you think of the concept? Because as Ray was saying, it was quite a unique idea.
I thought, and the more I knew about it, the more fantastic I think it is. We were in New York for one of the conventions with Keith Wilson, and he filled me in on design and things. The whole concept of it being not a space station, this is a marvelous thing. It was in fact a power station. So you had space and people looking at screens and not doing very much, which a power station is like. And then suddenly we're knocked out of this simple idea that the nuclear explosion has happened, which has got power, enough power to knock this planet, not a planet, is it? The moon, knock the moon out of the Earth's orbit. I just think it's brilliant. and then from then on, you have two parallel stories, really. You've got the story of 300 and odd people surviving against the odds, which is always the basis of all these stories on television, long-running series. It's all about survival. And then you, on this particular show, you could have anything happening on a passing planet. You could get the monster in, you could do all that, but then say goodbye to the planet and off you went, and you're surviving again.
Yeah.
So that was a tremendous sort of double action that was happening the whole time.
We just seen two very good actors playing the short mutants. Do you remember working with them? So I'll just get the cast details.
I do. Not.
Yeah.
There was another show, I can't remember, another one with little people in, and they were marvelous.
Yeah, because it was
They always are.
Gerald Staddon, who did things like Return of the Jedi and Willow and Dark Crystal, so had done quite a bit of acting. And then we've got Jackie Horton, and she didn't really do, this was kind of, I think, her only acting role, and then she went on to do other things. Do you remember those two actors, Ray?
Yeah, I had
No,
sorry, what are you saying, Prentis?
no, go ahead.
I had a bad time with that and the little people there, because when we cast it with Jerry and Sylvia, and I read the script from Johnny Byrne. I did a lot of Johnny Byrne scripts, even on Black Beauty, but because the first little person was put away and eaten, we knew she was taken for protein.
Yeah.
I was pissed off with it, because I said, why do we have to have little people? I said, why can't it be one of the big people who's done it? Why do we want to have two people that are small people and do it? I want to go the other way. Jerry Anderson wouldn't have it. And Sylvia sort of was siding with me slightly. I said, we're using little people for it. Why do we use little people? They eat and use the protein from big people. Let's do a big person. Why do we got to have little people? But they stuck with Jerry won, obviously. Jerry was the big guns. And we did it. But I was never comfortable with putting that young lady in that container and obliterating her. I was never comfortable with it, ever.
No, didn't like
we did it, and I got my paycheck, and we did it. So,
I mean, how do you feel about Prentis? Because it is a very harrowing scene, and it's a very dark episode in places.
Let me just interrupt one thing. That episode was the biggest cast of any Space 1999 ever shot. There was more actors in that than any other one ever shot.
Yeah,
we had so many people in it. It's not true. Sorry, go on. It was dark.
My memory of the little people is from. Sorry?
Oh, go on, Prentis.
My memory of little people was my very first television set, which was Dr. Finley's Casebook, which I did quite a few years before I did Space. And we had a little person on that, playing something in a circus. And we got the mail plane. We used to get the mail plane at 10 o'clock or 10:30 from Glasgow down to London. And he was on that. And I said, what are you doing next? And he said, I'm just about to go and do 6 months ice skating somewhere in the continent.
Right.
I thought it was marvellous.
Yeah. And what
you've gone. That's it.
What did you think, Prentis, about the story? Because it's quite a dark one. Well, quite a few Space 99s did have a sort of a darker element. Did you like it? The script when you got it?
Yes, I'm very surprised by how popular it was, and it was based on this on somebody's book. Who's I'm not a science fiction fan, I'm a Space 1999 fan. It is a dark story in many ways. It's a rather surprising story because you know at the end we leave them to it.
Yeah.
And so that. But you know, a necessary decision has to be made, I suppose, and off we go. They've made their decision, and we leave them to it.
Oh yeah. So when it came to you're being cast in the role, Prentis, did you have much input in terms of your character? Did you have a good idea of who this guy was going to be?
No, it was rather later. We made this one, I think, in the making of the series. No, I mean my contribution to this one with Nick wasn't anything you could say was contributed to the moving it along. We were sort of observing what was happening and rushing around trying to mend things.
Yeah. We just
we're doing our doing our punchy stuff, and you could see my sort of I'd been to Ray Austin sort of classes on how to deliver a blow from way back behind me right to the floor like that. And there's one shot actually of my stunt double, Terry Walsh. He's marvelous. He dived through a pair of doors. I don't know if you remember it. And he dived and he missed his feet by inches. Right. And he was marvelous. He was a marvelous guy. Yeah. When I was doing Doctor Who, he used to turn up as the stunt double for John Thor. No, John.
Pertwee.
John, yeah. And the stunt double for me, he put on a tash for me, and he was perfect. And he tells me that the very first stunt he ever did was being shot on a roof, coming down the roof and then falling off. And he hadn't checked the roof. And there was something sticking up on the roof. As he slid down, he left a bit of himself on the roof. He said he's never not checked a roof since.
Yeah, I think we all have spoken to Ray so often the importance of being prepared for a stunt, and yes. and Ray had a few close calls, haven't you, over your career, haven't you, Ray? A couple of things.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We're now seeing the lovely Joan Collins on screen. Do you guys both remember Joan?
Oh yes.
You can't forget Joan Collins.
I remember Joan as a little boy. In she used to have a picture often in one of the film magazines that came out, you know.
Yeah.
I think every young boy had pictures of Joan Collins.
I first knew Joni when she was married to Anthony Newley.
Yeah.
And Tara was born.
And was she nice too?
Joan Collins is on now.
Yeah. We just recently seen her introduction, and I think
story about Joan Collins.
Yes.
Story about Joan Collins. Prentis will probably remember this. I don't know when he was on the set at the time. When we cast Joni, and the first time she came on the set to play, she came on and she was all legs. She had a very short skirt and she looked bloody marvelous. And Barbara Bain was on the set and she called me aside. She said, that skirt is too short. I want it longer. I said, what? She said, I want it longer. I said, that's above my pay grade. I said, I don't do skirts, Barbara. You know, I don't do it. So she said, I'm not going to be on the set with her with that skirt as short as that. So I said, okay. So I sent for Jerry Anderson. Jerry came down, told him the problem. And he looked at Joni, who didn't know anything about this. Joni was on the other side talking with people and one thing and another. He said, well, one of the reasons I employed and cast her and gave the okay when Ray wanted her, he said, is number one, Lou Gray liked her. And he said, number two is she got great legs for this costume, and the costume was already designed. So he said, no, we leave it as it is. So Barbara Bain had to accept it. So we carry on working. And unbeknownst to anyone, Barbara went to Sylvia Anderson and told her. So what we didn't know at the time was Barbara had quite good legs. She wanted to show them off. So her and Sylvia decided that when she was captured by the barbarians mysteriously gave her one of their outfits. And when you see her later come in, her skirt is shorter than Joan Collins. And from that moment on, she got a new name. She was called Barbara Payne on the show, all the way through it, right till the end. Barbara Payne. But that's the story of the skirt and the legs. And if your audience in watching, especially you gentlemen, are not very interested in it, you notice her legs every time she comes in the scene. They're pretty good.
Yeah, and you see her legs before you see.
Oh yeah. Oh, who's the director?
Well, very well done, Ray. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew all this. Well, all this paraphernalia went on before I started shooting on her. So when it was all sorted out with Jerry, and that my first shot on Jackie Collins, I started purposely on her legs and went up.
I've just got Joan Collins on my screen now.
Yes, it's lovely, lovely makeup, lovely head, very intricate costume she's got, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, was Joan pleasant to work with? Was she good on set, guys?
Oh, she was always a knockout. Absolutely good as gold.
Yes,
she knew her line. She was never a problem. Yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full. You know, she was as good as gold. All my actors on that were good. I mean, I was lucky. Prentis and I, we have been lucky enough to work together 3 or 4 times. I had Prentis in Lime Street. I had him. Prentis and I worked together a few times, but all the actors on that were all good as gold. The only one that ever came up with dialogue changes, who was a bit of a pain with it, but he was right most of the time, was Barry Morse.
Right. Yeah.
He was deep into his characterization, Barry. You know, what he'd worked out, where he came from as a child and all this. And it went so deep, you know, deeper than the contract they gave him with the pay. You know, you used to say, why am I doing this? Because they gave me a contract and I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
But he was good at gold. He wasn't really a problem, but he always come up with something about, oh, when I was so-and-so, I went into this professorship. I said, wait a minute, it's all make-believe, Barry, all make-believe. I don't want to know. I want to shoot. I've got 10 days. Let's go.
And did anybody ever get it done in 10 days?
Oh, yeah.
Was there an episode that was done in 10 days?
We're all, that was it. You had to be out in 10 days. Otherwise, Lou Grade or Bernard Kingham were on the floor wanting to know why. I mean, that was my biggest scare.
Yes, I don't think anyone came in 10 days that I remember.
Anyone what?
Anyone came in 10 days.
Oh, yeah, everyone.
I don't think anyone made it in time.
Oh, yeah, they were all in time. But when I went up, Jerry was one of the people that let me out of my contracts, because I had a contract to do 9 more shows with Space 99. And when I got the offer to go to America, Jerry let me out of it. And my first terrible thing was when I walked onto a set in America and they said to me, 7 days. And I'd spent my life shooting shows in 10 days, including the Avengers, the Saint, Randall and Hopkirk, all the lot were 10-day shows. And now I'm in America
7 days.
shooting Hawaii 5-0. And they gave me the script and the breakdown, and they told me I had 7 days to shoot. I didn't know how the hell I was going to do it.
An hour show or a 50-minute show?
Yeah. All shows in America.
Yeah.
Between 5 and 7 days. Magnum I used to shoot in 6 days. All Magnum. Quincy I used to shoot.
I suppose you have the light that goes on forever.
Well,
if you're outside.
Not only the light. I mean, they worked a lot faster in those days over there. I mean, Quincy I used to shoot in 5 days because Quincy's were nearly all 4-wallers. You know, closed sets and everything. It was an easy show to shoot. So, but as I say, that's another story anyway. But I'm just saying it was very scary, very scary.
Was one of the reasons why you had to have a, say, a 10-day turnaround in the UK? Was it because of the union regulations? You had to sort of pull the plug at 10 o'clock at night. You couldn't do overtime. Was it more? Did that have an element of it?
Unions are strict no matter where. Even in America, they're even stricter. The Teamsters Union. No, it was just the format was decided with the budget, how much they would cost. And Bernard Kingham, who was Lou Grade's right-hand man for money, the years and years ago, decided it was a 10-day show. I mean, even the live shows, when we used to do live shows like Sergeant Cork and GS5 and Love Story across the road at ATV, they were 7-day shows with 2 days camera rehearsal, live camera rehearsal. So it made it a 9-day show, really, with those 2 live rehearsals. No, it was a strict ruling. You know, that was the way it was, and that's the way budgets were. All the Saints were 10 days. And when I did the Return of the Saint, I shot the pilot Return of the Saint, the 2-hour show, but I was allowed, you know, for that show, I was allowed 22 days. And that was a 2-hour pilot. Well, I did that with Ian Ogilvy.
We mentioned Barry Morris earlier. Prentis, do you have any particular memories of Barry that you'd like to share?
No, not really. I mean, he's a nice man to work with, and very, very. He was very caring.
Yes.
You know, he really sort of cared about what was going on in the show, and always sort of came up with characterization, as Ray was saying, which fitted. And you know, you felt that he thought it through, and he turned the meaning around from, say, what Martin or Barbara had divined from the facts. He'd come along and say what he really thought, which very often was completely the opposite. And that was the root of Barry, I think, in the show.
Yes, he seemed like he took a lot of time and attention to create a backstory and that kind of preparation as an actor. As an actor, Prentis, how do you sort of come to a character, to a role? How do you kind of prepare for something that you know is going to be a long-running character?
I saw my role in the beginning as shoulder to shoulder with Martin, and there was no messing with that, because I was always on the side of reality, I suppose, you know, of the breakdown of the control system in the Space 1999 set. It was Martin, the talking man, and it's something that Hollywood has covered a couple of times since, when the first officer takes on the captain of the ship and sacks him. There wasn't a hint of that anywhere in the scripts of what we did. With everything the commander said was 100%, and my character, Morrow, was 100% behind it. And there was only one occasion when Johnny Byrne reacted to something I did on the set. I've never seen this happen before. And he sort of exploded because he said I hadn't been angry about it. And I searched the script again and again to see where it said he reacts with anger. Never was. I mean, there was no hint of it. Had that been a character diversion we were going to have for that script, there should have been more of it. But he was having a bad morning.
You'll all have one or two there, isn't we? So it was sorry, Ray, do you want to add something?
Well, I was going to say, like I've said before with your shows, Philip, about our television shows, right from the off, once the Breakaway, I think it was called, the first episode, wasn't it called Breakaway?
Breakaway, yeah.
It had about three titles. I know that before they decided on it. But once the cast got together and the crew, it became a family very quickly, and everybody was very good. Like on the other shows which I've described, when we get guest stars come in, everybody made them welcome, you know, all the way around. And when it was their time to leave, everybody said goodbye to them. Everybody it was a family again, like most of the shows are, which I've done anyway, or which most people do. And all the regular cast, like Prentis and the regular people in it, were always very magnanimous and to the guest stars coming in, because it was a difficult show for a guest star to come into. Like it was difficult for Prentis and all the other people when they first started, because to start acting as if you're in space and with aliens and spaceships and that, it's very difficult. It's we're not used to it. We're used to going in bars, having drinks in films and shooting people or falling in love or making love. But all of a sudden we're walking around with laser guns and crazy things which no one else has done. I mean, you know, Jerry Anderson and them were the first to do it. They were before Star Trek. Star Trek went off and tried it and failed. They were dumped for 2 years. And then they did a comeback after Space 1999. I mean, because UFO 2, and that were the first times we ever got into space, and England did it with Jerry, not America. They never did it. And we had good prime time with UFO and one thing and another. But then unfortunately it ran alongside All in the Family in America, which was good because one show ended and the other. So the people who was with Space 1999 or All in the Family would stay on for those few more minutes, and then they'd leave it and watch the rest of the show. So we got good ratings. But then CBS cancelled All in the Family, and people who used to watch All in the Family and then transfer over to Space 1999 no longer did it. So we dropped ratings very, very badly. In that, you know, and then America came out with their first hit thing called Planet of the Apes, and it took numbers. It took numbers, Planet of the Apes, and it took it away. But everybody was a great family there, and as I say, it was very strange for an actor to come in and be told by the other actors that, you know, for instance, they rehearse a scene, and the actors who were used, my regular actors, our regular actors, knew all the gimmicks, what buttons to press, what was the comm and what was this. And now you've got a strange actor who last week was playing a postman in a series or something or the other. He's standing there, you know, what to do. He had no idea. And they were always very good showing them and helping them. And the worst thing that was, and it only happened to a few people because it was normally our regular cast that it happened to. We had to devise a moonwalk, and you know, you saw them land on the moon. We know how they walk on the moon. We know they float around, and we were Jerry Anderson, myself, and a guy called Freddie Freiberger, who was a script consultant from America. We said, how the hell are we going to do this? So very, very early in the show, when a scene first came up in my show, which was they were going to do a moonwalk, I got Frank Watts, the cameraman, Brian Johnson, Ian Wilson, and myself. We stayed behind. Oh, and the camera operator, I'll remember it, maybe Sony White. I can't remember the camera operator at the moment. And I came up with an idea, and so did Frank Watts. So what I did a test, and it was the most ridiculous test you've ever seen. You do a jump step, like a frog leap, and you keep carrying it on. It's absolutely ridiculous. How much of my room can you see? Can you still see me?
No, you've gone out of shot. I see you now.
Sure.
Got you now.
This is what it was like for our audience. That was it.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you use any
No, wait a minute.
high speed on it?
So now Frank Watts takes that and he turns 102 frames a second, which slows it down. I mean, I'm not teaching our audience how to suck eggs because we have a very bright audience. But the more frames you put through a camera, the slower the action is. It's slow motion. The less frames you put through a camera, it's fast, like Charlie Chaplin. So we did this test and it worked. My silly jumps, when they're slowed down to 102 frames, it's slow motion, and I floated through the air very gracefully. I didn't bounce when I land and look a complete idiot. Now, first of all, we do a scene now. I got to do this with actors. Now, we've experimented. We know it works. We've seen it work. We've seen it on film. And you can imagine, I can't recall the scenes or whatever they were. I'm just ad-libbing this now. But you can imagine an actor coming in with our actors who know this works, and he plays a straight scene on moon surface, I don't know, talking to Koenig or Prentis, and they say to him, just for instance, right, open the door of the vehicle. Now, he's played a straight line. He's an actor that plays a straight line. And he says, yes, Commander. And then he has to do this stupid jumping thing, which I just did, and still keep a straight face inside that mask. I mean, it was terrifying for them because they're good actors and they're playing a very serious dialogue. And at the end of the dialogue, they do this silly jump out of shot. And they was as good as gold. They did it. They trusted us. My usual cast knew it because most of them have done it and they'd seen it on the screen and knew that you floated. But a new actor coming in to do a stupid thing like this on a serious scene, it was hilarious. I mean, they say, no, you're joking. No, this is the wind up. Come on, now you're going to laugh in a minute, aren't you? They know you do it as I'm doing it. Do this jump. And Martin and Prentis, whoever would say, no, it's all right. They say, yeah, oh, come on, I don't believe you. Because it was the most ridiculous thing to do. But that's how we did our moonwalks. And sometimes we're full as earth underneath the camera, making dust come up as if it was moon dust coming up.
Well, it worked a treat.
It did. I mean, it may bore our audience, that story, but, you know, that's the way it happened on Space 1999.
Yeah. I mean, because we're talking about very early sort of days, and again, television sci-fi, you kind of making it up as you going along. We don't have the big budgets of Star Wars that came along a few years later, so it's always interesting to know how you guys kind of sort of made it.
We were the most expensive television series ever made on the first day. It was a double spread in Variety in America.
Yeah,
saying that we were expensive. We had the budget.
You see, one of the brilliant things was Keith Wilson came up with the idea of those sets. What he did it whilst we were still at they were still at Elstree. He built all those sets, but he built them with dividers, so he could take dividers out and change them for other parts of the space station. It was a brilliant idea he had. So you go down a corridor, do a left turn on one shot. And then when you go to do it, he'd lift that left turn, make it a right turn. So you've gone down one corridor, turn left, and the next corridor's turn right. And it looked like an enormous set, but it was very small. The set weren't that big. Keith Wilson made them look big by all the changes he kept putting in, all those corridors in this one with the colored glass. Yeah. The colored glass would be taken out of some of those and it become a different corridor. Then the colored glass would be put back. You put the camera the other way and it's a further extension of the corridor. You know, at one stage, there's a line in there where the ship they go on is 50 miles long. I mean, you can imagine Keith Wilson doing 50 miles of corridor.
Yeah, and there's good use of false perspective, isn't there, on the corridors as well? So it looks like it goes on forever. So there's little techniques that big films still use today. So
Oh yeah, yeah. But Keith Wilson was the one who came up with that. And when they moved the stuff virtually overnight from Elstree, when Elstree closed down, and they moved it overnight to Pinewood, and we were going to go. Then the unions were against us. It was the unions came out. They were going to stop us because we'd moved all the stuff overnight. Or they, not me. I was. I think Jerry Anderson and people.
One actor I did want to mention was Aubrey Morris as the priest, who does a wonderful job in the episode. Do you remember Aubrey? Ray
Who's that?
Aubrey Morris.
Aubrey Morris came to me when he got the script, he accepted it, and I was pleased because I'd used Aubrey on the Saint and Randall and Hopkirk, I think it was. I used him on. And I also, when I was a stuntman, I knew him from the Avengers because I'd often sat and talked with him. And when Aubrey came onto the set, Aubrey's a very nice, very small man, but very nice. He spoke in this soft voice. And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. He said, how would you describe this part? And I said, he's a nutter. He said, yes, he's completely nutty, isn't he? He said, the way he raves on. He said, what do you think I should do? I said, rave more than you would normally rave, Aubrey. He said, all right, I will do that. He said, I think that answers my question. He says, yes. And he says, is it all right for me to touch Barbara Bain's face? I said, why not? I said, she's actress as well. He said, yes, because I feel that I'm going to touch all these people to find out if they're mutants. I said, okay. And he said, I will be doing a lot of shouting to the spirits and things. I said, okay, do the shouting to the spirits. And you'll see in a minute. So he did do a lot of shouting with his book and one thing and another. He was a riot. He was so funny.
Did Aubrey leave similar lasting impressions on you, Prentis?
What?
Saying, did you remember working with Aubrey Morris?
Yes, a little, but we weren't around at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
I think he was doing a lot of shots when we weren't. When, you know, very often the main mission, I'd be in for 3 or 4 days, sit in the main mission, and then go home for the rest of the shoot.
Yeah. So
I don't think I did very much with Aubrey, but I remember him vividly.
So it must have been quite nice.
There was one thing I was trying to pick up on what Ray was saying about the look of the sets and doing an ordinary show. One thing that helped enormously in the beginning, I feel, was the costumes. And I very often, the costumes get knocked because we couldn't sort of roll our sleeves up and settle down in them to be other things. But to be in a semi sort of uniform that was like everyone else allowed us to be these people who could react or to the new ideas and new things that were going to happen to them in space. I think it was a help. If we'd all had sort of ordinary clothes, all different, it would have been more difficult.
Yeah.
A friend of Barbara costumes. What, I forget the designer's name. He was very well known. The
Gernreich? Someone Gernreich?
No. He was from America.
I forget him. My book of words.
They designed the coloured arms for rank and one thing and another. But there's one thing wrong with the uniforms. They were made out of a wool, and after a while, if an actor had been sitting down for a long time and had their legs crossed or anything, the wool would stretch. So you'd have these baggy trousers and that, and you had to watch it, make sure wardrobe did it. Ellen, I can't remember her name, the wardrobe mistress. Someone look up the wardrobe mistress.
Elaine Sullivan.
Yeah, Ray Sullivan. Now, she was big. She did a lot of big movies. She had a big career, Elaine Sullivan, very big. But that was one of her things that she let about repressing stuff so it didn't have these elbow bulges and things where it stretched. Yeah, she was.
Yes, that and the fact that they had no neck. They
Yeah.
had no sort of finish to the neck,
You're right.
which I think Martin solved with a black amount. And the second in series 2, everyone had something around their neck.
Yeah.
Just to sort of finish them off.
Yeah, the costumes are very much like Star Trek: The Motion Picture in terms of what the main cast. So whether that was a subconscious influence that Space 99 had on Star Trek later, I'm not sure. So you were saying, Prentis, that a lot of the time you were based in the mission set, so it must have been quite nice to be on some other sets and some corridors, seeing some action.
Oh yes,
yeah.
You get picked to lead the team. That was. You know, when Tony's deciding who'll go. Paul, you go. You lead the team. Hey, we're having a week off. Here on location.
Yeah.
On the back lot.
Yeah. Do you remember the actor who plays the sort of the main primitive, who then goes into the station and finds the Darians? Robert Russell. Do you remember Robert Russell?
I don't.
He wasn't.
He's the first one to die.
Meet him, I think.
Isn't he the first one to die?
I know. Robert Russell is plays Hayden's. He's the warrior that once Aubrey Morris is overcome, and it is pointed out by the Space 99 crew that this is a sham. He goes in and he's sort of leading the barbarians. Sort of quite imposing.
Yeah, I know who you mean. I know who you mean.
Yeah.
I know who you mean. I've forgotten his name, but I know him. And I that's the only time I worked with him, but I knew his work. He before that, he nearly always played a baddie, a gangster or someone or the other.
He did Persuaders, and he was playing sort of started off as a villain, turned out, to help the duo. So he's also done quite a bit of television. So would you say that how does this episode rank you guys in terms of your Space 99 episodes? Prentis, would you say this in your top 3 or 4? Would you say?
I'd say it's about 6 or 7 actually.
Oh. So it's
a number that I would rate above it. Yes.
Yeah. And how about you, Ray? Do you feel the same? It's sort of sort of, where would you kind of place it if you had to?
I had Joan Collins in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One a really good guest star. Yeah.
It was good looking at her as well.
Yeah.
But still, I enjoyed the episode. It was a bit dark for me, but hey, you know, I signed a contract with Jerry Anderson for 20 shows.
Yeah.
I did 9 of them, and all 9, I had fun with all of them. Like Alpha Child, I had a lot of shows. I think my favorite was the one I did with Margaret Leighton. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. The audience will, but that was a very enjoyable show because I loved her as an actress, and it was an honor for me to work with such a person that I'd grown up watching on black and white movies, and an honor to do her last work. I did the very last show she did.
It's important to point out, it's Collision Course was that episode.
Yeah, that's it. Collision Course.
Yeah,
she was a lovely lady, and she came down with her husband Michael Wilding, and he used to sit at the side of the set. A very sad show for me, but it was an enjoyable show.
And the last scene that we're getting to now is a very touching one. Sort of the absence of the crew member that's killed on as the shuttle goes back to again, was that's the beauty of the script, wasn't it? It was a very touching, very moving moving story, and of course nicely done end to quite a deep story, really. Because I don't know if people necessarily know, but it was based the idea for this story was based upon the real life story where a plane crashed in the Andes in 1972, and the survivors were trapped in the snowy mountains for over 70 days, and to survive they had to eat the dead, so their family, their relatives, their friends, and that is sparked the idea for the episode we're talking about. And I think originally there was going to be more about the gene bank and perhaps more sort of Nazi kind of echoing of trying to create like a master race and pure genes and things. But I don't know whether way that certain things were perhaps just being a bit too hard at that time, or was it kind of, it wasn't watered down from your point of view or anything like that?
Well, I think it was watered down quite a lot, really.
I think it was.
Yeah. I mean,
I remember the plane going down.
Yeah.
In 72, was that? That's before we started.
Yeah, 72, and then there was a book written about it in 74, and I think the writer thought, well, this is a good story that could have science fiction implications.
Yeah, but we didn't get.
There was never any sort of.
I say we didn't get to the stage of cutting up people. We put them in a chamber and they disappeared and they became protein.
Yeah.
We couldn't have got away with it anyway. America would have never accepted it. America accepted stuff, they didn't like violence and one thing and another at that stage. Because we nearly got the Avengers cancelled because we're supposed to have been too violent.
Yeah.
It was the most violent show there was.
And there is one scene where they've got the dead barbarians and they're all naked on slabs and being moved, and I'm surprised you didn't have any censor issues with that, because it was quite quite sort of graphic.
Yeah. Did you notice on all that stuff Barbara Baines' short skirt?
Yeah, I couldn't miss it really. And we haven't. The one person we haven't mentioned is Martin Landau. Do you guys remember working with Martin? Was he a good leading man?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was.
Well, as
excellent.
From past shows, I first worked with Martin Landau on North by Northwest, where I doubled him on Lincoln's mounting face there.
Yeah.
And when I walked into the set on Space 1999, Martin looked at me and he said, "Ray." I said, "Yeah." He said, "What you doing here? Stunting?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm directing." He said, "Yeah, really? Oh, great." He said, "Tony's down the road," because Tony Curtis was doing the Prefectors or something down there, two buildings down. But Martin was always good. Then I used Martin again on the Return of the Bionic Man and Bionic Woman. I used him in that. He was a nice man. Nice man, good actor. An unrated actor right until the end of his life, in actual fact. It's only towards the last 4 or 5 years of his life that he really got really meaty, good parts.
Yeah.
Before that, it was heavies, playing the baddies and one thing or another. And then someone discovered him at last. And as you know, he got nominated and everything.
One of the audience, Alan, said, "Prentis, it was wonderful where you greeted Martin at a convention, and you years after the series, and you greeted him with 'Hello, Commander.'" So that was kind of nice to see.
Well, he always was.
Yeah.
It was natural. I didn't think about it. Just, "Hello, Commander."
I wanted to ask, because
he's a lovely man.
Oh, I did actually meet him at a convention. I was lucky enough to meet him briefly and get a photo with him. And yeah, he was a lovely guy. I wanted to ask Prentis, because I'm sure most people are familiar with the history of Series 1 and Series 2 of Space 99, and obviously we won't go into that on this occasion, but was it a bit of a shock that you weren't invited back to series 2, because of course you would have expected to come back?
It was a big shock in many ways, because I found out when Xenia and then Nick called me from Pinewood and said, "Where are you?" They started shooting episodes, series 2. And so I was left with the phone. So it was quite unpleasant, because I had every reason to think I would be, because of the treatment I had on the first series. At some point, Bob Brooks, who directed some of series 2, had a party at his place, because he had a setup that did made commercials. He was quite well known. My ex-wife, worked for him a lot, and we were invited to the party where there was Martin and Barbara and Bob Brooks and people, all expecting this to go along. There were a number of other things that made it a bit of a shock. One was that my agent had been very cagey about something I didn't understand, but he arrived at Pinewood in the last episode, I think, of first series. He smiled and, "How are you, Prentis?" But he wasn't down there talking about me. He was down there talking about somebody else. And I believe it may have been Nick, who I think joined the agency. But he then never told me. Now, he must have known that I wasn't going to be asked to. So was it lack of moral fibre, or one of those things that he just didn't tell me? And for a year, I spent sort of worrying about this. And in the end, I left them.
Yeah.
Because I thought, that's not going to work.
And what was your
In
memory?
pity, they'd been such a good agent for me.
Yeah.
Or I'd been a good client for them, take your pick.
Yeah. But what was your memory, Wade, of going from series 1 to series 2 and coming back in and think, well, hang on a minute, this is a completely different show almost from the bottom upwards?
Well, I've thought if I'd read or learnt about the series and how it was to look and be, I might not have wished to do it, frankly.
Yeah.
Because, he's a good actor, the man who took over my job. But some of it looks as if it's a two-hander sometimes between her and him.
Yeah.
It's not at all sort of Space 1999 at all. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. At the time, I was rather shocked.
Oh yeah.
And it was pity.
And how do you feel way about coming back and directing a couple of the series 2 and thinking, well, hang on a minute, what's happened here? Well, while Prentis gets back on, Ray, do you want to sort of build on what we've been talking about?
To answer that question is, I really didn't know that Prentis and other changes had been made, because when I came back, I'd been away doing other shows. As I said, I had a contract and I did my first shows. And when I came back to start fulfilling the rest of the contract, things had changed. But again, above my pay grade, it was nothing to do with me. It's to do with Lou Grade and Jerry and Abe Mandel. They were the ones making those decisions. I just walk into a set, find my actors, get my scripts, and put it together and shoot. I mean, I could no longer have turned around and said, "Where's Prentis Hancock? I'm not going to shoot this," than anything else. Why he was not recast, I've got no idea. He always did a good job for me. But they do these things, they do these things. They find they've got a friend who wants it, or someone with a big head you know, the biggest problem was Abe Mandel in New York, in California with ITC America. He was a pain. He was a pain to Jerry and to many other shows, but he was the man who okayed and bit the tick to get money and make it happen. You know, I mean, we had big trouble at the first of Space 1999 because we didn't have money. Italy came in, but the law was that Italy insisted that they have 2 Italians in the show. There had to be 2 Italians in the show. And Sylvia Anderson and myself went to Rome and cast, or tried to cast, the Italians for the part. And we couldn't cast Italians for the part. We wound up with Catherine Schnell and Zena Merton. You know, that's the way it went on. And Italy, in the end, backed down and left us alone.
Yeah.
But we had to have certain Italian actors come in, which we did.
Yeah.
Through different periods and played guest parts. And that's the reason we got away with it, and got the Italian money and kept going, because Abe Mandel wasn't putting up the full bankroll.
Yeah.
Lou Grade had pulled out once already. Then he went back. Jerry talked him into going back, and it carried on.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you back. Yeah. Yeah, we were just talking, Prentis, about the sort of
Sorry about that. Don't know what happened.
Oh, that's okay. We were just talking about.
I passed my hand over my computer and it all vanished.
Oh yeah, I've done that a lot. We were just talking about the sort of weird financial dynamic a little bit, because it was British money, American money, Italian money, and of course, no wonder there was kind of problems in how the sort of you know, it was only different forces
in the second series.
Well, for the first series, I think, was also funded that way. So people kind of, as they saw it, they thought, well, we want to change this or change that, and it was ended up a bit messy, to put it mildly, really.
Well, it's in filmmaking, everybody who puts money in wants to make changes.
Yeah.
It's as far as I was saying. I mean, Xenia and Nick, I don't think.
Oh, I lost him again. I did want to ask you, Ray, about working with Clifton Jones. I did try and get in touch with him, but I haven't got a contact. I couldn't find him.
He disappeared.
He's just literally disappeared.
Yeah. He disappeared. He must have decided acting wasn't for him. He was a nice man. Again, on time, did his job, knew his lines, was effective in what he did. He was underwritten. That's the problem. They never really wrote any scripts that made him prominent or the prominent character. Not on my shows that I remember anyway. He was always the secondary character. And most times, Clifton was on the monitor. Yeah. You know, talking to someone somewhere else. So you had him on a black and white monitor in the scene. Yeah. They could have done much more for him, I think.
Yeah, I get a sense that a lot of characters could have been, you know, well, if you look, say, at Star Trek or the Star Trek sequel series, you tended to have an episode that featured on the captain and then the first officer. Yeah. So it would kind of, everyone would get their turn, you know.
It was a good show for the walk-on artist, you know, because they had a regular job, because they were the crew and the people on Alpha at the station. So they got a regular job. They used to be called extras. I mean, I always call them walk-on artists, because you can't make a show without walk-on artists. No. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, you've got to have background. You've got to have people doing things. And Sylvia selected a lot of those who she'd worked with before on UFO, and they were the regular people in it. Although they were always hoping to get a line or something like that, which, you know me, I always used to get in trouble giving people lines. I wasn't supposed to have lines. It was the plague of producers' lives. Ray Austin with his giving out lines and all that. I used to get in so much trouble over it all the time. But they were a good lot of walk-on artists on that show.
I did have a specific question for you, Ray, from the audience. When you come to planning your shots for for a series like this? Do you like to have it all storyboarded? Or do you like to make it up kind of a bit as you go to kind of see how it develops? Or
I like to give it to my actors, as I've said before. I give them the set. They know the plot, they know the script, they know their characters, and they run the scene for me.
yeah,
Then I make my adjustments if I've got to. Camera wise and one thing or another. Maybe I'm behind schedule. Maybe I can't afford to do as many shots as what they're doing. It's going to force me into, and I have to make changes as the director. But I always relied on giving the scene and the set to the actors and saying, let me see what you're going to do. And most of the time, the actors came up with it. And I always used to say to myself, God, that's better than I planned last night when I was lying thinking of what I was going to do in the main mission. What they did today was much better.
yeah,
They know it, and as I said before so many times, actors know the script, they know what their intention is in that, they know what the narrative is, and give them the set and let them show you what they want to do. And it always works out. It's beautiful the way they put it together. All I have to do then is make sure the tempo is right and the camera angles are right, and it all works,
So, of course, with the first series, you have Joe Anderson and Sylvia Anderson working together. Second series, Sylvia's gone, it's just Jerry. Did that change the dynamic from your perspective?
No.
No,
Not at all.
no, because I take it then they weren't there pretty much. They were kind of doing their role. You were doing your bit, kind of sort of left you alone a little bit.
Well, no one ever gave me any problems anyway. I mean, I used to have problems with Jerry sometimes and editors because I wouldn't do what they wanted me to do. I shoot it the way I wanted to shoot it. So I know it would go together, and when it was put together, it worked, and it would be very good. It would be my episode, because I can't. I don't like producers and that coming down on the floor and saying to me, "Oh no, why don't you do this and why don't you do that?" or "He should do that." And I tell them I want them to go away. I nod and make all the right sounds, and once their back's turned, I shoot it the way I was going to shoot it anyway. I've done it all my life, and unfortunately, touch wood, it paid off. I never came unstuck, taking my gut instinct and my actor's instinct and doing what I wanted to do. I mean, as I say, the Margaret Leighton show was one of the examples for that. Margaret Leighton accepted that part. She never did television, Margaret Leighton, and she played a 100-year-old lady in that show, sitting on a throne.
Yeah,
all her scenes were on a throne. She never walked anywhere. She never moved anywhere. That was her thing, as this goddess who sat on this throne or whatever it was. And when she came down for the first day, they dressed her. She came on the set dressed in I think it was all black. And she sat on the throne and started her dialogue, and we played a scene. And we only got to 11 o'clock in the morning. We started at 7. She came on, I think, at 8. And I was shooting stuff on her. And as you know, in films, you shoot a bit on one person, then you shoot to the next person, and then you cut to this and do that. Especially in the same scene. Whoever the scene Margaret Leighton is in and talking to, you do her speech, then you cover the next one, then you cover the next. And I was shooting on her, and I turned around and shot on someone else. And Michael Wilding was there, who I knew Michael because I used to know him when he was with David Niven. And Margaret waved to me in between one of the shots. I was with Frankie Watts, and we were lining up the next shot on her. And she waved me to go over to her, which I did. And she said, "How much have I got left to do?" So I said, "What do you mean, how much have you got left to do?" She said, "Well, in the story and the script, how much more have I got sitting here talking?" So I said, "I don't know." And Gladys Goldsmith was the script woman on it. script editor. So I called Gladys over. I said, roughly, I said, how many pages does Margaret have? So Gladys knew immediately. She flipped through pages, and I think, I can't remember for sure. I think she probably, in the total of a 65-page script, she had about 18 pages of dialogue, spaced out, you know, not in one, it's spaced out during the show, but it all totaled up to that amount. But she was always in the same place.
Yeah.
And I said, about 18. She says, yes. Well, she said, I've got two problems. She says, number one, she said, I don't know what I'm talking about. She said, it doesn't mean anything to me. She says, I'm saying it, I know it, but I don't know what I'm talking about when you're talking about spheres and you're talking about comlocks and that. She said, I don't know what it means. So I smiled and she smiled. So I said, I understand what you're saying. She said, but I will make it sound as if I know. So I said, good. And she said, the other thing is, she said, I think you better leave me on this throne and shoot everything on me now. She said, because I don't think I will be here tomorrow. She said, I don't think I will be in this world tomorrow.
Right.
And I couldn't believe what she was saying to me. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I feel very bad. I don't feel well at all. And she said, I know that I'm very close to the end. And I thought to myself, shit, you know, I can't believe that what this woman is saying to me.
Yeah.
So I said, hold on. So I went over to Michael and I told Michael what he said. He said, she's telling the truth. He said, I don't think she'll make it. So I went straight out to Ken Baker and I said, for God's sake, get Michael or get Jerry Anderson down here. Jerry Anderson and Reg Hill came down. And I said, we've got to make a big change here. I said, because Margaret Leighton will not be with us for the rest of the show. I said, we better stop everything and shoot all the dialogue on her now, which she's willing to do. And they said, why? And I told him, and they all of a sudden, everybody realizes how serious this is. So all the other actors, except the ones who were playing lines off with her, took it, rest, went home, whatever. And we spent that day and most of the next morning and shot all of her stuff in one. She went home, and as you know, 4 days later, she passed away.
Yeah.
That was one of the saddest things I've ever done. But, it was a hell of a thing to happen. Hell of a thing to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it's lovely that, you know, her role is there for fans to enjoy, but as you say, a very difficult time. Yeah,
but she was sitting there doing that dialogue, knowing she was dying. It was incredible. She kept on. Talk about a trooper. She kept on. Number one, she didn't understand what she was talking about, which was quite funny to her.
Yeah.
And number two is she knew that she was not long for this world. She wanted to finish it, and she knew she had to finish it.
Yeah, I suppose it keeps you going, doesn't it? Really, if you're, you know, and it's what she loved doing. So I guess
yes.
I'm happy to do it. But
the saddest thing about it was Michael Wilder sitting there next to her, holding her hand, and in between shots and one thing and another, because he loved her so much, and he knew exactly what was happening.
I'm still trying to get Prentis on in the background, so I'm sure we'll get him there. We did have a question from Ben. He wanted to know, Ray, is there any techniques you've used in your career to get good performances out of a cast? How's your relationship with actors? Do you have to get creative sometimes with actors to get the performance that you want sometimes?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Getting performances mainly from actors who can't remember their lines. That is the biggest problem. You know, when you've got an actor that keeps drawing, he's normally very good, and this one day suddenly, like Robert Wagner, bless him, who suddenly forgets their lines and working out ways of not embarrassing them. You know, I mean, I put buckets next to the camera for an actor once who dried on his lines 4 times, and he was in a hell of a state. He kept drying. So I had a bucket put by the side of the camera, and if I knew he was going to dry, I kicked the bucket. And so, oh, sorry. Oh God, that's my fault. I'm sorry. Let's start again. Over again, please. And it stopped them feeling so bad. They hadn't caused it to stop for the 5th time. You know, they'd done it wrong 5 times. On the 6th time, it was the director, Ray Austin, who messed the shot up. So, you know, they felt a lot better about it, and they got through it in the end. It saved me doing it in cuts, you know, because sometimes the actors have a bad day, you know, a real bad day, and they can't get it.
So it's really about creating a nice atmosphere on set, and then everything else will follow.
Yeah, I told you, Robert Wagner purposely sometimes used to dry his lines himself to make the other actor feel okay and apologize, and the other actor would think, oh, if Robert Wagner can do it, I can do it, you know.
Yeah.
It's happened with lots of actors with me, lots of actors.
We had a question from Alan for you, Ray. Do you remember working with Lee Majors on the $6 Billion Man?
Very, very, very much so. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
And that's, we're going back to the high-speed camera, and that's what we used to do with Lee. Lee used to run at normal speed because he had a bad leg anyway, because he hurt his kneecap when he was football. But once we turned it into 102 frames, Lee floated when he was running. If you remember the show, when he became bionic, he used to stand there, crouch, and start the move. And we used to cut, turn the camera speed round to the other speed, and then go. And he just used to run normal, but it came through slow motion, which is this bionic thing. But then I, you know, did that with Lee. I did Return of Bionic Man with Lee. I did Fall Guy with Lee. I've always gone all right with him, always.
Good, wonderful. See if there's any other questions we have specifically for you, Ray. Well, it was a good compliment from Ben. He said that the script, he said your accomplishment as a director, turning the script for Missions of the Darians into, you turn it into a wonderful, immersive world, and a very, you know, I think it's one of his favorite episodes. So that's a nice little compliment.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Pass on. Let's see what else we've got while we wait. There's anything else that came in. We also had a question about your transition from stunts to directing. We've kind of sort of covered that, but I'm guessing it would have been quite. Was it quite weird when you were first directing your when you began Second Unit, and you were kind of alluding that everyone was kind of saying, "What is this stuntman doing directing us?" But did that kind of go quite quickly?
Yeah, but it was very very scary, because, you know, no one in the industry had ever heard of a stuntman becoming a director or a writer. No one had ever heard of it. It was unheard of. So, and also more so, not so much with actors and the public, but the crews. You know, the cameraman who wanted to be a director, the focus puller who wanted to be a director, the camera operator who wanted to be a director or a writer. All these people, you know, wanted more that, but suddenly this stuntman, you know, this stuntman that like broken nose and cauliflower ears, they don't become directors, and I did. And so the first whole show I did on the Avengers, everybody was good because everybody knew me, and the cameraman who I went out with, Paul Beeson, and that was good. They were respectful. They accepted the fact that I was the director and that there was no problem and one thing or another. Except when I did my first Saint, Brendan Stafford, who was the cameraman, really wanted to be a director. He'd asked Bob Baker and Roger Moore 2 or 3 times, could he direct a show, and they'd always turned him down. And suddenly he's got this stuntman who the week before had literally been falling down the stairs in a shot on the Saint, and he was photographing it. Now he's got this man who used to fall down the stairs standing there saying, right, camera over here, let's go over there, let's do this. And his nose was really out of joint. But most people accepted it. They were very good to me. The cameramen were very good to me. They taught me a hell of a lot. I mean, a heck of a lot. Alan Hume, Frankie Watts, Paul Beeson, all good, great cameramen. And the directors. I mean, bear in mind, I was taking work away from directors when I got an extra place in the market at EMI Studios where all the shows were being shot. Suddenly there wasn't one show going because a guy called Raymond Austin suddenly is a director and taking it. But all the directors were very good to me. Sidney Hayes, Roy Wall Baker, they were all marvelous. And I'd learnt my craft from them, you know, driving them mad, asking them questions and doing their fight sequences. So I was, no, people accepted me in it. A few, obviously, it got up their nostrils and they didn't like it. They wanted it instead. But I should say 99.9% were for me and that they were proud to that I'd done it.
Yeah. And we did have a question come in. Just want to ask, what do you remember much about Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus?
About what?
About your time on Spartacus doing stunts.
Yeah.
Did you any stories there, Ray?
No, not really. Well, only the one story which I think I've told Peter Ustinov when we did the entrance to when we did the walk down the mile crucifix.
Yeah,
we were all up on crucifix, and a lot in the background there were dummies on the crucifix, but in foreground there was stuntmen up on the crucifix because it was a crappy job. The walk-on artists, the extras, didn't want to do it. Number one, there was a peg through the pole, the cross, the crucifix, which was only about 3 inches, and your feet were crossed and tied with a rope. It weren't really tied. The rope was put round it and tucked in at the back. It wasn't tied tight. So your heels had to rest on that peg. Now your arms are stretched out and tied to the post, but also we had a wooden top of a nail glued to the center of our hand, and the same there with artificial blood running out of it. Yeah. And in our ankle, one ankle, there was a wooden plug glued onto our ankle as if a nail had been driven through into the thing. So it's all make-believe, as you know. They didn't really crucify us. Yeah. So we're up there, right? And also our heads got the stuff on with the blood running down and that. And we're up on these things. It was uncomfortable. I mean, it really was difficult to keep your balance up there and stay there, because you're not really tied on, because you can't tie the actor or the stuntman's hands around that pole, because in case you fall or something. So what we're doing, you're holding with your thumb and your forefinger at the edge of the pole. It's all done with mirrors, and it was murder to do. And we got up on the poles, and the scene is Ustinov comes down that lane with Jeannie Simmons, and they speak to Caesar, and he has a long speech to Caesar. Now, Ustinov is a nice guy, and he knew most of us stunt guys and got on very well with us. And he knew we were hurting. He knew we were in trouble, and it hurt. It was nothing dangerous, it just hurt. And we all had to go up by ladder. So by the time the guy up there got up, the guy down here was hurting too much already, because he'd been up there 11 minutes while the ladders going to each one to put people up. You know, and they had about 5 ladders going up different, but every time one ladder put the first man up and got to the last man, the first man is hurting like hell. It's a terrible job. So long story short, we're there, that Ustinov comes down, Kubrick shouts action, he comes down all the way down, big shot, wide shot. The cart pulls up, and Ustinov stands there for his speech with Jeannie Simmons, and he forgot his lines. So he said he knew that we were dying on that crucifix, he knew we were dying.
Hmm.
So with a straight face, he stood in front of Caesar with her, and he said, "Curse you, Curtius. May they boil sprouts in your navel," with a straight face. Kubrick couldn't hear it because he didn't have they didn't have earphones in those days on the camera. He didn't hear it. He didn't know that he said that.
Yeah.
So the next day they go to the daily, the rushes, and Kubrick hears it for the first time. He's watching the screen and watching this beautiful scene, and Ustinov said, "Curse you, Curtius," which was the right line, but the last part he forgot. So he said, "May they boil sprouts in your navel." So they voiced it after that. But that was, he knew the stuntman would have killed him if he'd have gone again, because we were always playing. Wendy's here to see you again at last.
Hi.
You got to duck down.
Hi.
Hi, Wendy. How you doing?
Very good. And you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, had our usual technical difficulties with Prentis, but apart from that, we've been doing
Lost
quite
Prentis.
well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lost him for the moment. He's still trying to get on. I'm just going to see if I can do my end, because it'd be nice just to say hello to him before, say goodbye to him and everything. One thing,
well, the prime story of Sparta, because the rest of it was all, falling the fire rolls. It wasn't a very nice job. It paid well, but we had those fire rolls going over us, the straw. A lot of those.
because if people want to have a little look at a bit of a little reel of Ray's stunt work, it is on my YouTube channel, Lives in the Pictures, and you'll see the flaming barrels coming over the crowds, and a lot of other bits and pieces of your work.
That wasn't the dangerous part and the nasty part of when you see the hay barrels rolling over us, was they were over you and gone fairly quickly. So you didn't get too it got hot. But the worst part of it was our uniforms and our chain mail and everything, which we had on, and boots and armor and helmets. The straw would come off of the flaming barrels and stick in the corners of the armor. So you thought you got away with the shot, and you fall into the side as if you were dead or you're running on, and suddenly the fire that's caught underneath your arm in the armor is still on the fire, and the hay, it's still burning, and you wow, it's happening all the time. Or in the leg of your boot, it gets stuck. The straw was sticking everywhere. Oh, wow. And in the helmets. Did you, by the way, did you get that picture I sent of the first man directing on the moon?
Oh, yes.
I sent Philip a picture that was sent me by a fan of me directing on the moon surface. And I'd like to think that I was the first director ever to be on the moon surface directing. So I sent him the picture, and I wondered if he could put it up for the fans.
I will indeed, yeah. Share. Okay, now. Oh,
that's Sylvia Anderson on the left.
Yeah.
And Barbara Bain on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's nice, wasn't it?
Yeah. Got pictures up.
Yeah. This is another one directing.
That's directing Martin Landau on the moon.
Yeah.
Without any breathing apparatus at all. I'm describing something or the other on the moon surface. That was on stage M.
So yeah, you would be the first director to direct.
Oh, 100%. Hitchcock never directed on the moon.
Well, I suppose unless you believe the conspiracies and think the moon landing was fake, in which case you would have been beaten to it. But
no, it's not fake. I was really up there doing it. I went up to the moon to do this stuff. I got special per diem and special travel money.
And that's the other one. Are you there?
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. I think there's one from series 2. Yes, this is series 2 with
Catherine Snow.
Yeah, a bit directed in there. This seemed a bit of more colourful, the second season, in many respects. It seemed to be a bit more.
The uniforms had changed a bit as well.
And wasn't the one of the producers that came in, wasn't he? Didn't he work on the original Star Trek series? So there's kind of a little bit of a feel of Star Trek going on with all the monsters and things of that nature.
No, I can't remember. God, I've shot so many shows. So many shows.
Yeah. I'm just going to have one quick check with Prentis a second. I'm just going to give a quick call. If not, I'll have to do another one and get him back then. I don't know.
Well, we're over now, aren't we, anyway?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we've covered the main points, really, but see if we can get him. But,
he's probably gone to bed.
well, possibly. I mean, yeah, there's no kind of reason why he shouldn't have been able to get back in, so I'm not sure why. I checked the settings and everything, so but if anyone who's watching who did want to send any messages for me to read out to Prentis, just put them in the chat and I will email them to him, so you will get them. But see if I can. I don't think we've improved the sales of Apple Macs this evening, have we, really?
Oh God! Well, it's usually me that's in trouble. You know, it's usually me that's in trouble. I don't know what would happen if we were back in the days and they were still with us, like Brian Clements, who never ever would touch a computer. He still wrote his scripts on a two-finger typing on a typewriter. And blessed Dennis Spooner would have thrown the computer probably out the window. You know,
yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, when you were on the series, the first series, Jay Anderson, Sylvia Anderson, did you? Of course, there were not much left in their marriage, sadly. But I suppose it didn't show in terms of their work. Their relationship was pretty good from your point of view.
I never knew it until the day it happened. I always thought they were as good as gold.
Yeah.
You know, and I went, as I say, to Rome twice with Sylvia, and she was calling Jerry all the time, but most of it was business. But I had no idea, and I got fairly close with her.
Yeah. But you were sort of alluding to the fact that it was Jerry was very much the driving force.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that never caused any conflict or anything, or it was.
No, Sylvia saw herself as Lady Penelope.
Yeah.
From the puppet series.
You
know, she carved herself from that character. That was Sylvia.
Yeah.
She was really Lady Penelope. Clothes and all that sort of thing, you know. But she was a nice person. They were both nice people. Both nice people. I always got on very well with them.
Yeah.
Very well with them. And Red Shaw, who was the other producer at that time. It was a good crew as well.
Yeah.
But sadly, a lot of them have gone now. They passed on. Keith Wilson died very, very young.
A few of them did. Yeah, I was looking at the my notes and things. Yeah, a few died very young, sadly. But, just one of those things, really. So, do you have any final comments about the episode, Ray? Do you think it holds up very?
Oh yeah. Well, science fiction always holds up. Even their puppet shows hold up. They still show them.
Yeah, it's one of those timeless. I mean, even though the fact it's set at a specific, time, what was very futuristic back in the 70s, 1999. I don't think it really dates as a show, apart from maybe the specific dates that they use. But yeah, I think and the models are film quality, aren't they?
They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They made the show. They made the show.
Yeah, it's very much sort of because I think it was 2001: Space Odyssey. Some, the same people that did some of that were on the series. Well, yeah, I think we better leave it there. I'm sorry we can't get Prentis back. Maybe we'll get back at some point in the future. Well, thank you very much, Ray, for joining us for this evening. It's been great to talk to you as always.
Okay, super. It's nice to be there with your fans and your audience again. I'm surprised that they're still sticking with me. I've been on so many times now. They must have heard every story I've ever told. Every
time we get new people, so we've always got some diehards that are always with us, and other but we do have lots of fresh faces, which is always nice. So yeah. And what shows they are, because a lot of fans are for different shows. Yeah, and I'm surprised how broad the fandom is. Because people that are Avengers fans are also, so those that join us for the Avengers events are also on here as well. So it's people have quite a broad palette, I think, with just a fondness for these sort of era in general, which is nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, my friend. Yeah, take care, Ray, and I'll speak to you soon. And once again, Philip, thanks for spending all your time and putting it together for us all, so we can enjoy it. I never mind doing it. It's the industry gave me a lot, and I like giving back whenever I can. Yeah, well, I may try and see if I can get Prentis again. It'd be nice to sort of have a little wrap-up chat. So if I can do that, I will. Okay, then, my friend. Okay, take care. All the best. Good night, everyone. God bless. Night. Bye.